Tonight we'll talk about grounding, which is the lay person's term for it. In the research, it's called earthing, but either one mean reconnecting to the earth. And if you're a gardener or say someone who wears minimalist shoes or does barefoot running, you're probably familiar with this topic a little bit. Or if you're someone who's done a deep dive into electromagnetic field research, EMFs, 5G, that sort of thing, you may be familiar with earthing or grounding. And we're going to cover that tonight. And the research is very intriguing on earthing or grounding. I'll say one or the other, they're both synonymous, but the research is intriguing on its usefulness for everything. And we'll get into why, but essentially some authors have coined a term called Electron Deficiency Syndrome for being a driver of chronic disease worldwide for us, whether we're talking about diabetes or autoimmune disease, inflammatory diseases, cancer, slow healing wounds, all of this. And we'll jump into that tonight. So the topic title is Earthing a Solution to Electron Deficiency Syndrome? Is your disconnection driving your disease? And by disconnection, I'm referring to the fact that evolutionarily, our hunter-gatherer ancestors and humanity, until about 50 years ago, were connected to the earth either via barefoot and or sleeping on the ground. If you're walking barefoot, you're grounded, you're earthing. If you sleep on the ground, you're grounding or earthing, you're connected to the earth. And it's not until about 50 years ago when soled shoes were created that humanity was disconnected from the earth and its electromagnetic fields and the benefits associated with that. And then more recently, moving to desk jobs and office high rises where you're literally not even on the earth anymore. And there's many scientists out there and papers supporting their hypotheses that this disconnection from the earth and its electromagnetic fields is driving chronic inflammation, oxidative stress, speeding aging, etc. And another thing it may be doing is impacting our kids. It's definitely impacting our kids, but it may be connected to more of the behavioral issues like ADD, ADHD, learning disabilities, autoimmunity in children, inflammatory diseases in children, because children are, monkeys in a cage these days, right? They were monkeys in a cage at school. We're cutting out gym class. We're cutting out recess. So any chance they had to be connected to the earth, even with their shoes on, by just being outside and at least having sun exposure, has been removed, all the way to the point where now many kids are doing Zoom school, so they're not even at school anymore. So we need to reestablish connection with the earth. And today we're going to look at the research showing us why we want to do that. So let's jump into that. So here's a paper called Electric Nutrition: The Surprising Health and Healing Benefits of Grounding or Earthing. And if you want to feel youthful, if you want to feel energetic, potentially the grounding is key to restoring your youthful energy that you're seeking, restoring vitality, maybe even making you look younger, as we'll see in some of these studies. And so we want to do things that are inexpensive and effective. And what's more free than walking barefoot out in your yard? That's as easy as it can be, right? And so, but why do we need to do it? Well, the earth, researchers have known for a long time that humans have circadian rhythms, right? We have circadian rhythms. We have over 100 biological rhythms associated with cortisol release, sex hormone release, sleep-wake cycles, all kinds of things. And these rhythms, because we've evolved on planet Earth, are timed with environmental rhythms that the earth has. And these are called geophysical fields. So they're invisible energies like gravity and magnetism and electricity and electromagnetism that humans and the earth have co-evolved in. And the electric field of the earth puts out a steady rhythm or steady frequency called the Schumann resonance, which is 7.83 hertz. And that is nature's resonance. That is the healing resonance. And so it even coincides with alpha brain waves that we can measure on EEGs in humans. And so when we disconnect from Earth, when we're not grounded barefoot or wearing conductive shoes, when we're disconnected because we have rubber-soled shoes or some other soled shoes on, we're literally not connected to that electromagnetic field, and that can lead to health issues. Well, how can that lead to health issues? This study explains it. And basically, we are connective tissue, right? Humans are connective tissue. You hear everything is connected to everything. Well, that's true. And the way that it is literally true from a biology standpoint is that we have connective tissue in the form of fascia and muscle and tendons and cartilage and bone, etc. And these connective tissues connect everything in the body. Fascia, you can see the superficial fascia here in the upper right image. Fascia is the envelope that connects everything to everything. Our muscles are covered in fascia. Fascia covers bone and nerves and tendons and ligaments. So literally every cell in your body is connected via a fascial network, and that fascial network also stores electrons. So if you see here, this is a collagen protein on the left, and it's a triple helix, and that triple helix stores electrons. And if you look at the image on the right, that's called a matrazome. So it's a bunch of these triple helices all combined, and you can see that matrazome has what looks like little feathers on it, and in those feathers, where the actual feather part would be if it were a feather, is storage for a bunch of electrons. And electrons are negatively charged, and those negatively charged ions create a negative charge in an electrochemical gradient that produces health. And if we don't have those, then we're more dominant from a positive ion standpoint, which promotes disease. So we want to be connected to the earth, that Schumann resonance, and we want to be absorbing those electrons so that we're fully charged, so to speak. And another way to look at that would be this graphic. So you can see in graphic A, there's Mr. Shoes, and he's ungrounded because he's wearing shoes, and you can see his matrazome sac there on the right is depleted of electrons. So he doesn't have stored electrons ready to be used. So we could say he has Electron Deficiency Syndrome. Now say Mr. Shoes sustains an injury to his shin. Well, when you're injured, the immune system's going to travel to that area, and the immune system's going to release free radicals to break down damaged tissue and kill bacteria so you don't get infected. But when that happens in an environment where you don't have negative electrons available, the damaged tissue is releasing positive ions. The free radicals are positive ions. And so there's collateral damage. Now you have injured tissue, but the healthy tissue around the border of the injured tissue is being damaged by the free radicals being released by the immune system. And so that can create what's called an inflammatory barricade, or a border around the injured tissue where more inflammation is occurring. And so this can lead to chronic inflammation and slow wound healing. Look at image B, you see Mr. Barefoot, and he is grounded. He's not wearing shoes, and his matrazome is full of electrons. So if he sustains the same injury to his shin, the immune system travels there, releases the positive ions, the free radicals, to help clean up the damaged tissue and prevent bacterial growth and infection there. But this time there's no inflammatory barricade formed because there's negative ions that come and meet the positive ions and neutralize them. So we don't have the inflammatory barrier formed. The positive ions that kill the bacteria and clean up the wound are used for that, but there's the negative ions from the grounding prevent the collateral damage to the healthy tissue around it. Therefore, there's lower risk of infection, there's lower risk of damage to healthy tissue, there's lower risk of autoimmune disease because we're not damaging healthy tissue and presenting that to our immune system. And there's lower risk of chronic inflammation and a slow healing wound. So that's it in regards to wound healing, and we can see that in real life in this image, in these two images. So here in A is an 84-year-old woman who developed a blister because she wore a boot that was too tight and developed an ulcer there where the blister was. And so we have a diabetic ulcer essentially in an 84-year-old woman. And this ulcer had been there for 8 weeks, I believe. Let me check. 8 months, I'm sorry. So this non-healing ulcer had been there for 8 months. And she had, as a diabetic, received all kinds of medical care to try and heal this wound. Nothing worked. So she presented to the researchers' clinic, and they implemented grounding for her. And they did daily 30-minute grounding sessions. And so A was the wound on presentation. B was the wound taken after 1 week of grounding treatments. And C is the wound at the end of 2 weeks. So the wound she had that wouldn't heal in 8 months with the best medical care that diabetics can get, 30 minutes a day for 2 weeks of grounding led to healing of that wound. That's impressive. We have another wound here from a Tour de France cyclist. So this cyclist took the chain wheel to the leg and gouged his leg. And so he saw the resident doctor. So this happened on day 0. He saw the resident doctor, and these pads on his legs are grounding pads or earthing pads. So they pumped negative ions into his shin. And image B here is 1 day or the next day after the injury. And image C is the second day after the injury. And so, you know, a typical injury like this would be swollen and red and you know, painful. The grounding made it so that the redness, edema, pain didn't show up and allowed this cyclist to get back on his bike the day following the injury. So this day 2, he had ridden this day as well. And again, they used grounding to prevent the swelling, the redness, and the pain so that he could continue to compete in the Tour de France, which you're probably familiar is basically the Super Bowl for cycling. So big time use in wound healing, but it's useful for so much more. So here's a study called Integrative and Lifestyle Medicine Strategies Should Include Earthing. So these authors are basically making the case that earthing should be a part of anyone's lifestyle that's seeking to be healthy, because not only does it help with pain, but it also helps stabilize physiology at the deepest levels, reducing inflammation, pain, stress, improving blood flow, energy, sleep, and overall well-being. So let's look at some of the things that these authors have to say. There are 2 basic ways of earthing. One, like I said, is walking barefoot outside, and the best surfaces are grass, soil, or sand. So like at the beach. And I'm sure everyone here has had the experience of going to the beach and being relaxed and coming home or feeling rejuvenated. Yes, part of that is seeing the sunsets and hearing the waves, but a huge part of that is on the beach, you're barefoot and you're grounding all day long, and you're getting all those negative ions from the earth. You're aesthetically pleased by the environment around you, and you're getting a ton of vitamin D. So you're correcting the electron deficiency syndrome on that trip. So basically the earth is an analgesic. We spoke through all this, but what I want you to see is, again, there's other ways to measure it besides wound healing. Here's a patient that these are thermography images. So thermography is looking at temperature differences of body tissues. And so on the left here, you can see a patient's knee. Well, both pictures are a patient's knees. And this patient had chronic knee pain. The left, where the yellow and red is higher temperature, more pain, more abnormal. The colors on the right with the green and blues are cooler. So that's showing reduction in inflammation and heat and an associated reduction in pain. So that's a half hour apart. So yellow and red, painful knees walk in, patient grounds for 30 minutes, and big time reduction in inflammation and pain. Here we have an 85-year-old male with chronic left low back pain and right shoulder pain. So you can see on the image on the left, the upper right red block, that's his right shoulder, and the red, orange, and yellow on the left low back. He's had pain in these areas as an 85-year-old male. He slept grounded for 2 nights and reported an 80% reduction in pain after 2 nights. After 4 weeks of sleeping grounded, his pain was totally gone except for an occasional mild stiffness. And if you look at the post pictures, look, this big red blob from his right shoulder is now reduced to mostly yellow and blue. And look at the low back, big difference. So the grounding, the negative ions decrease inflammation, decrease collateral tissue damage, allow him to sleep better. When we sleep is when we heal best. So there's all these collateral benefits. Another benefit is coming from autonomic nervous system balancing. So we've talked many times about the sympathetic nervous system is the fight or flight response, the stress response. That's where most of us live 24/7, and that drives chronic disease because chronic cortisol release, chronic stress suppresses immunity, suppresses sex hormone function, inhibits thyroid function, interferes with sleep, leads to weight gain, etc. So we want to be more parasympathetic, which is the rest and digest side of things. That's vagus nerve function. Well, multiple studies have shown that earthing helps balance autonomics, which autonomics is just, think of autonomic nervous system as the iOS on your iPhone, right? You have iOS, what is it, 14 now? So the iOS is the operating system of your phone. You don't know how it works, but your phone works, so you're happy. The autonomic nervous system is the part of our nervous system that's running all the behind the scenes things. You don't know how it works, but you know that your heart's beating, you're pumping blood, you're taking breaths without thinking about it. It's all the things you don't need to think about. So we want to have balanced function there. Well, studies on premature infants and earthing premature infants show that earthing significantly helps regulate inflammation and stress responses in the infants. It increases heart rate variability, which is a key vital marker for cardiovascular health and autonomic balance. And so all of these findings are indicative of improved vagal function. So the authors that ran the PREMI study said among the babies tested, grounding raised parasympathetic tone within minutes. And they found that raising the vagal tone was also an important risk factor for preventing necrotizing enterocolitis, which is a gut infection that can be devastating to infants. So big time benefit to earthing for premature children even. Earthing can improve facial microcirculation. So in the beauty industry, they're always looking for ways to improve circulation to the face, decrease wrinkles, improve collagen and skin turgor or tightness. And so this image here is a woman that was 55 years old, and she earthed or grounded for 20 minutes. And you can see the improved circulation from an all blue face essentially to the red, yellow, orange, the restoration of blood flow or increased blood flow to her face after just 20 minutes of earthing. So there are many reports of people feeling and looking younger and more rested after earthing. This is an image of a woman who earthed for 1 hour, and you can see how it improved the distribution of blood flow and lymph circulation in her torso. Red and white areas are very hot, yellow to green are cooler. And so you could see before she earthed, up in the neck, she had very hot temperature. After earthing, it had cooled down to a more healthy temperature there. You had better distribution of blood flow and lymphatic flow in the abdomen. So it's pretty cool stuff. So these authors, they showed the diabetic wound again, but these authors made a summary image that show things that have been shown in the research and clinically in their offices to be benefited by earthing. So we'll just run through them. We talked about improved microcirculation in the face, also improves mood. From a lung perspective, improves blood oxygen content, can help relieve asthma. From digestion, it can help decrease bloating and calm upset stomach. And if you're improving blood flow in the GI, that's going to be a large part of that. From a reproductive standpoint, it helps regulate hormonal rhythms. Again, earthing, the earth has rhythms, circadian rhythms, diurnal rhythms, and we humans have rhythms. So when we're in sync with the earth, our rhythms are going to be better, whether that's our menstrual cycle or our sleep cycle, etc. Earthing helps balance bone metabolism and reduces osteoporosis. Remember, bones are connective tissue. If our connective tissues have robust amounts of negative ions, they're going to be healthier than if they don't. Joints reduce pain, reduce arthritis pain and inflammation. Stress, you're balancing the autonomic nervous system, so you're reducing stress, improving sleep and mood. You're balancing heart rhythms and blood pressure, your muscles. There's been many studies on delayed onset muscle soreness, or DOMS as it's called. So you go to the gym and you're sore a day or two after. Well, earthing reduces the DOMS or reduces the soreness faster than if you don't earth. And so again, that's indication of reduction of inflammation, faster tissue healing with earthing. And then injuries, we saw the images of the diabetic ulcer heal when no medical treatment would heal it. We saw the Tour de France rider's shin heal and not have the inflammation and redness and pain that you would have expected from that type of injury. Aging. Free radicals promote aging. You take antioxidants to fight the free radicals. Free radicals are called oxidative stress or oxidants. We take antioxidants to neutralize those. So the more free radicals you are producing, the faster you're aging. Well, if we can neutralize those free radicals, we can slow aging. Well, remember Mr. Shoes and Mr. Barefoot. Mr. Barefoot had lots of neutralizing negative ions that neutralize the positive ions of the free radicals made by the immune system, thereby decreasing inflammation and tissue damage, but also slowing aging. Electrical sensitivity. If you're someone that is sensitive to EMFs, like a laptop and a cell phone and 5G and cell towers and electrical cables going by your house, grounding can be key for you. Because if you're sensitive to those EMFs, those are positively charged. Those are at frequencies that are not biologic. Those are damaging frequencies. So having sufficient negative ions to help neutralize those is key. And you may find that as you ground and create robust stores of the negative ions, that you can do better around devices than you did previously. And then energy can be improved because we're electrochemical beings, right? And so again, this is an electromagnetic response. And so the connective tissues store the negative ions, and the connective tissues function optimally when they have sufficient negative ions. So nerve conduction, muscle contraction, wound healing, hormone rhythms, all of those things can be positively benefited. And when we're benefiting all of these things and promoting optimal physiology, biology, and function, then we're less likely to develop chronic diseases across the board. So that's the research on it. The how do you do it is simple, and we'll open it up for questions here. But the options in terms of how do you do it is the best way and the easiest way and the most inexpensive way is free. You just go barefoot outside, and you want to shoot for 20 to 30 minutes a day. That's the free way to do it. If you can't do that, then there are products out there that you can ground yourself with while you're at your workspace. So right now I'm grounding with a product while I'm doing this presentation. This wristband here is connected to a ground in the wall, and I'm grounding and getting negative ions while I present. There's also mats. Earlier today I was making reports for visits I'll do later this week, and I had this mat grounded on the floor, and I was barefoot, my bare feet on the mat while I'm typing reports in my office. I can lay this on my bed and sleep on it and be grounded while I'm sleeping. So those products are available. There's actually even conductive footwear out there available now too, commercially. So it's very easy to do, and as we've seen, can be very beneficial in a broad spectrum of ways. And so I encourage you out there to begin earthing. And if you want to learn more, there is a website called earthinginstitute.net. And this is the page they threw up at me to see, but here's the homepage. The Earthing Institute, earthinginstitute.net. You can learn more, read more, and get as deep into it as you'd like. So let's open it up for questions.
With earthing and like walking around in your backyard or somewhere they might spray herbicides.
Yeah.
Is there any research linked to walking on pesticides or herbicides? Any link to that not being good for you?
I haven't seen research on that specifically, but if we take research that we know about exposure to those things not being good for us, then yeah, walking barefoot on those things are unlikely to be healthful because the feet absorb things quite readily. So we've spoken on previous calls about doing magnesium foot baths for diabetics because the feet soak up the magnesium readily. Grounding is effective because the feet readily accept the negative ions. So yeah, if you're walking, I wouldn't go walk a golf course because they're spraying all kinds of herbicides and pesticides and glyphosate to, keep the greens looking the way they are. So yeah, you want to, if you know that you spray your yard, then maybe don't walk in your yard. Maybe go find a beach area or some unsprayed virgin grass that you can walk. And it doesn't have to be grass. It could be a dirt path. You could go to Latta Plantation if you're local and walk one of their dirt paths. There's no limit to, areas available to walk.
So does it need to be like 20 minutes every day forever?
Yeah. As long as you're a human on the planet, that would be ideal. Because there's toxins and negative things 24/7 a day forever.
So is a grounding mat less, not as good as walking on grass? or is it equal?
I'm not sure on that. I haven't seen a side-to-side study on a product versus, you know, the natural thing, but I would suspect the natural would be better because it usually is. But if you can't, you know, if you're someone who, hey, I don't have 30 minutes free a day to go be barefoot in the grass, then, you know, a mat or a wristband or you know, whatever product you get is a way to do it while you're working. So today, while I was doing reports, I got 2 hours of grounding in without having to focus on grounding, you know. And then, you know, if you're going to sleep on one, there's lots of hours of it.
So you mean to tell me that 85-year-old guy went and slept outside?
No, he slept on
That's what it sounded like.
he slept on a grounding mat.
Oh, okay.
So one of these. So you just,
What's the name of that mat?
this one's called Land. It's the website's landkissing.com, but their website's currently under construction. I went there today just to look at updated stuff because I've had this for about a year. But you can find this on Amazon it's $40 on Amazon, and you get it comes with 2 of these mats and 2 of these wristbands and 2 ground cables. So pretty inexpensive for, you know, the ability to ground yourself and your spouse or your pet or whoever, or have one at work, one at home, whatever you're gonna
Dr.
do.
B, you need your own Amazon store so you can get,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I can
What
get
does
to
the cable, what does the
Yeah.
cable hook up to?
the ground in your wall. So on a plug outlet, it looks like this, right? And the bottom one is the ground. So you the other end of this cable looks like this. So that just goes right
Okay.
into the bottom hole, the ground hole, and it grounds you.
I think some actually have spikes that you put in the ground because last week when we were talking about grounding, I just found that fascinating. So I went a little bit down the rabbit hole, and I think literally some have a spike connected to the mat and you
Yeah.
put it in the ground.
Yeah, here's an image of one. So, you know, if you have a mat on your bed, you can put it in the ground of your wall outlet, or if you took your mat outside, some of them have a grounding rod that you literally stick in the dirt.
And with the minimalist shoes, they have a very thin sole or whatever. Does that, I mean, you're still not touching the ground.
Yeah, I haven't researched the conductive shoes, but I suspect they're different than even the minimalist shoes. So like if you're wearing Vibram 5 Fingers, I think probably that material is still non-conductive. So I haven't looked into the conductive footwear.
It's just mind blowing how something so simple can do all of this. I mean, it's just, it is, God provided everything.
Yeah.
It's just everything.
Yeah, and it's interesting because if you look at research on hunter-gatherer tribes, even current hunter-gatherer tribes, or you look at anthropology and tribes that are no longer living and stuff, they had no cardiovascular disease, they had no cancer, they had no chronic disease. And it's not all because of grounding. They also, you know, ate paleo and all of this, but just look at the lifestyle, right? They ate from the earth, they were connected to the earth, they followed the light dark cycles of the sun and the rhythms of the earth. You know, like everything they did was natural and you know, synchronized. Whereas now everything we do is asynchronous with the earth, right? It's like, all right, sun goes down, we turn on our blue lights and just blast ourselves and keep us awake. At no point in the day were we grounded. We're eating fake food. We're not sleeping right. We're hearing negative. We're fighting with spouses. So no wonder we're sick and inflamed. And then we're taught the only savior is this fake pill that's made by this fake company, you know, and then we sit here and we say, it's mind blowing that just walking on grass could be the answer. You know, we've been so inundated and marketed to, and basically we've just changed human life so much that it's something as simple as grass could be the best therapy.